and a salute. I'm your host, Chris Budihas. And in the studio today, I got Selena Hernandez Haines from First Close Honor Flight, Inc. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for having me.
No, it's great to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about you. So where are you from and what did you do in the Navy?
I am the rare Jacksonville native. I was born at the NAS Jacksonville Hospital a long time ago. And I was in the Navy for just under 21 years.
Wow.
And most of my time was spent doing anti-submarine warfare with a system called IUSS, Integrated Undersea Surveillance System.
Yeah. So where did you go to school at to get your commission?
Well, I went to Flagler College, and then I went through Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island. Yes, I did.
So, yeah, well, congratulations. That's
Thank
great.
You.
Thank you for your service, number one.
Well, back at you.
So you full Navy career. We talked off camera. East Coast, West Coast, submarine warfare, a little bit of that hunt for Red October flair.
Yes.
And then you ended up retiring. And what was your journey from your post-Navy career that got you to working with Honor Flight?
Well, I did a little time with a defense contractor because that's a rite of passage.
Right.
And I spent several years working as a federal civilian with the Coast Guard.
Okay.
And then because I still had family down here, I got a job offer down in St. Augustine, came down and worked at Flagler College for a few years.
Oh, great.
And then I retired very fortuitously as it happened because it was immediately before the start of the COVID pandemic.
Okay.
And coincidentally, immediately before I heard of Honor Flight for the very first time.
Really? So Honor Flight, talk to us about this great organization.
Okay, so for those who haven't heard of it, Honor Flight Network is a nationwide organization. All the hubs are individually chartered as 501c3 nonprofit organizations. And the sole mission of Honor Flight is to take elderly and critically ill veterans to Washington, D.C. for a day to visit, or sometimes a couple of days with the West Coast hubs, to visit the memorials in D.C., some of the military museums, and to enjoy, again, that camaraderie with fellow veterans. Because, at some level, a veteran is a veteran is a veteran.
Absolutely.
And you see the groups come together during these trips. And that's what we do, and it's incredible.
I can imagine. What's like a typical day for Honor Flight? So when you're going to actually, do the launch, take folks there and come back, what does that kind of look like?
Okay, so First Coast Honor Flight does our trips in a day.
Okay.
We go up and back, and it's a long day, but it's a
great day, right?
It's a great day. It's a fabulous day. And so when an Honor Flight travels out of Jacksonville, by the way, First Coast Honor Flight is the first Honor Flight hub to operate out of North Florida.
Okay.
So we do our trips in a day, and that means that the staff shows up at about 3 in the morning to a certain location where the veterans and the guardians then come along. So every veteran who travels with Honor Flight has a guardian with them. And we get to JIA about 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning. By the way, big shout out to everyone at Jacksonville International Airport,
Great airport,
TSA and the JIA staff, HMS host. We could not ask for any more from them.
Yeah.
So at this time we're flying commercial, which means to some extent we're at the mercy, well, to all the extent, we're at the mercy of the commercial airline schedules. And what we're looking for is nonstop flights to maximize the time on the ground. So we take the first nonstop flight of the day, get up to ideally Reagan or possibly BWI, and then we take the group of veterans to, downtown DC. One thing that always happens and drives the rest of the schedule is that the group goes to observe the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery. And so whatever slot we get, we work around from that. But we go to the mall and we visit the World War II Memorial, of course the Vietnam War Memorial and the Korean War Memorial. We go to the Marine Corps Memorial at Iwo Jima, commonly called Iwo Jima. Go to the Air Force Memorial now that the parking lot is open. And if time allows, we'll go to the Women in Service Memorial and whatever else we can fit in.
That's great.
And then we go back to the airport, get back on the planes, and fly home.
No doubt for our veterans, because these are senior folks. I imagine most of them
the oldest veteran we have taken turned 100 right after the flight.
Oh, wow.
The next week.
Oh, great for him. That's great. And so I imagine most of your veterans now are there's probably a handful of World War II, but mostly Korean War, Vietnam folks?
It's pretty overwhelmingly Vietnam veterans that we have seen. But, the demographics tell another story. That's part of what I want to talk about next. In our area, we're responsible for 9 counties in Northeast Florida. And in that area, based on Department of Veteran Affairs estimates, there are more than 9,700 veterans who are aged 85 and older. And that's your senior Vietnam veterans, the Korean War and World War II veterans. That's a lot of people.
Yep.
We're not seeing as many of that group as we would like to see. But there are 69,000 veterans, including that 9,700, who are age 65 and older. So that incorporates all the Vietnam veterans and some who stayed on Persian Gulf and so forth. We're in Vietnam and Persian Gulf War.
Right.
So our flights mostly Vietnam veterans, but we've been very fortunate to have at least one World War II veteran and several Korean War veterans on almost every flight.
That's great. And you guys are a 501c3.
Yes.
Which you mentioned earlier. So you're always looking for donations and grants.
We're always looking for donations. Honor Flight receives no federal or state money. We are entirely supported by corporate donors and private citizens.
Wow.
And in fact, everybody who works with Honor Flight nationwide, except for half a dozen in DC, we're all volunteers.
Wow.
All volunteers. And that means, that's board members and everybody, and that means that 95 cents of every dollar donated goes to the mission.
That's awesome.
Goes to making the flights happen.
Yeah, you don't see that in most nonprofits. It's usually a lot less than that. So
it is something we work hard to be mindful of.
Wow. Well, Selena, I'm going to invite you back, definitely continue this conversation. But hey, thanks for your service to our nation, and thanks for what you're doing in your post-military careers. I've seen it myself when I was volunteering with Honor Flight up in New York, seeing the veterans really, as one daughter said, her dad just totally turned around. He was an older gentleman in his late 80s. His spirits were changing around just by being around other vets and going to see New York, but DC. So
it is a healing experience.
Yes, ma'am.
I have seen it.
Well, thank you again. Well, hey, folks, check out Honor Flight, First Coast Honor Flight. Take a look at what they're doing, changing lives and making a difference in veterans. So check them out. Take a look at us online and on LinkedIn, and we'll see you at our next segment.